It's not 10 at 3 time, but it's 10 at 3 time in Tennessee nonetheless. What's up, y'all? How are you? I hope you're doing well this evening. Wes Rucker coming to you from WBIR HQ right here, just a couple miles away from downtown Knoxville, Tennessee, where I said earlier today that we would see you again in about 23 hours. News dictated otherwise. Things come up, head on a swivel. And again, right, as soon as we were leaving, right?
Yeah.
It's the second time this week that we're leaving and the Cade Phillips stuff happens, like right as we're basically saying bye. And then today, while we were talking about Tennessee and the mutual interest that I think we all thought was there, and I think was there with Ryan Walters, it looks like Tennessee maybe going in a different direction. Here to talk about it with me, we got Justin Wallace way back there on the ones and twos. We got Emilie Ray Cochrane again right here with us. Emilie, how are you?
Two times in one day.
I know, right?
I'm honestly really tired.
Well, we left. The reason we're going on live now is because it's my son's birthday, so went home to do that. Then trying to put a 4-year-old to bed on his birthday is kind of like wrestling an alligator, I think. I've never wrestled an alligator. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, I have.
Seems you have. Nice.
Yeah.
How many? 3 or 4 of them?
Kind of like 6 or 7.
They got a lot of them up in
I
Philly?
didn't mean to do that.
They got a lot of them up in Philly? 6, 7? Oh, no.
I didn't mean to do that.
Did you really not mean to do that, or did you just do, or did you?
Justin's laughing behind me. Do you have thoughts?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I heard 6, 7, I giggled. That's the first I got.
But I mean, I was just thinking about all the wild alligators that are up there in Philadelphia. Just,
Yeah, they're roaming.
they're all the way. I mean, it's what it's known for, right?
Worse than the rats.
It's known for what? Rocky, the Eagles, Benjamin Franklin
Benjamin Franklin Parkway.
and alligators, the
And
wild
alligators, yeah.
And
Can't miss the alligators.
No
Forget about the
kidding.
cheesesteaks.
but that's in the top 5 for sure. But that so had to do that and then kind of come back over here and get resituated. Kind of like walked in the door now with the wind. God knows what's done with the hair this
Yeah.
evening because
Looks great.
If you've not been outside, cold and windy this evening. Cold and windy. But so now we're back here to talk about a lot of things because that's not the only thing that's been happening. We'll touch on what's been going on up in Ann Arbor here in this 10 at 3 after dark
gosh.
edition. At first it became. You're like, oh, look, something ridiculous happened again. Look, dude's behaving badly. Oh, I've seen this before. And then, oh, no, that took a turn, and it became like a
Oh, my goodness,
like,
what is going on?
That took a while. And honestly, depending on what goes on there now, could ripple down to everything else in college football because Michigan's one of those 5 or 6 jobs probably that if they're filled by someone else within the college ranks, not maybe someone who comes from the NFL or something like that, it's just one of those near the top of the food chain ones that people start picking from other people, and just like, we've seen this surge kind of this whole thing with Penn State, Florida, all these things going on, the Kiffin stuff. There are just some programs that when you think things are settled, they can really turn the thing in a hurry, and Michigan is one of those places. So.
Yeah, I mean, this situation in of itself, I don't remember the last time something super crazy like this happened. You would know better than me.
Something like this,
but I can't think of a crazier scenario.
When you're talking about like a someone who wakes up one morning as Michigan's football coach and then is not only fired but then detained and put in handcuffs later in the day, like
for reasons that are up in the air right now, but
yes,
violent reasons,
yes,
scary
and scary reasons, like scary for the people around him and to him personally with self-harm, obviously too in there, and threatening to do self-harm, and there's I'm you just hope when things like that start popping up in a story, you just immediately start going from, oh, this is wild to, and the journalist wheels start turning, and then you go very quickly back to being a human being, and you're like, oh no, this is personally just devastating on so many levels. And, but before all that, there was some news at Tennessee.
Yeah, let's get to the Tennessee potential news.
Yes, and the news that we do know is that Jermod McCoy is going to go submitted his name anyways for the NFL draft, and that's not surprising, even though he did not play down this season. Corners as good as him, hard to get, and they're going to be big time prospects. So he still almost certainly a first rounder. He'll test fine. And at Tennessee this season, I think if he could have played, I think he would have. Maybe if they'd gotten into the playoffs, something like that, you never know. It could have happened. But just with his situation, no need to.
I don't even think we really got a lot of clarity on what it was. I know it was a knee injury, but
It's
whenever
ACL,
whenever Josh Heupel talked about it, he was very much, it's a unique injury. It's, so we don't really know the nuts and bolts there about what actually
there's
the injury was.
Yeah, there's different. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over
No,
you.
you're fine.
We're all tired, right?
I'm ready for bed.
No kidding. It's the way that those injuries happen. They can sometimes. It's not just an ACL. It can be an ACL or something else. There's also different ways to go about the surgical repair of it, which can then lead to, where are you moving the tendon from? Are you doing the cadaver one? Or are you doing? There's all kinds of different ways to go about it. And so we obviously, I'm not a doctor anyway, but we haven't seen access to any files, and we're not doctors, so I will just call that what it is and say I was told pretty routinely that if there was no doubt that he could play, he's the kind of guy that would be out there, and it just didn't work out that way. So, but we'll see. He's going to go to the draft. I think certainly he's still a high-round pick. We did talk about at the end of the episode Braylon Staley being SEC Freshman of the Year. It's funny because we were talking about, I think he may have been gypped a little bit on the whole, maybe he should have been at least third-team All-SEC, but lo and behold, he gets SEC Freshman of the Year. So congratulations to him for that. Congratulations to his representation and his wallet, obviously. Those will both go up now as a result of this, I imagine.
Also, the way he found out, did you see the video UT posted?
About 10 minutes ago, I saw it.
Super cool stuff from UT Athletics, taking a video of Braylon Staley's family on FaceTime with Kelsey Pope. Kelsey shows Braylon that, he's on FaceTime with the family, and then his dad, Brian, said, you're SEC Freshman of the Year, and, all of his teammates congratulating him. Is a pretty cool moment.
It was, and Staley's dad is, he's active out there on the socials, right?
Yeah,
he's one of those guys who's out there.
He's not a UT mom. We got Lydia. We've got so many, active parents, and Brian's one of those dads, the rare dads. That
yes, he is, and he is mostly just very supportive of his son. It's people can either stay silent or they can be out there, and he's out there. He's supporting his kid and all that. And I laughed though earlier because he'll just tell you what he thinks, and he was calling out a couple people for not naming him All SEC and calling out people, and he can't call out 10 News. He can't call out WBIR because I've said since last season, even when he was redshirting, hey, this kid's good. Mm-hmm. So he knows. If Staley family, you're watching, hey, I was there. I was there on that one. Yeah. Sometimes I've been surprised. That one I saw how good he was.
And Elijah Nixon doing that nice family package on Thanksgiving of the Staley family, and Braylon's musical background,
drummer,
cool,
the rhythm,
cool stuff.
The
Love
rhythm,
that.
yes, it was great. And apparently he still can play, which at some point
maybe we'll try to get him.
I want to see it.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know why, but I feel like he can sing.
Ooh.
I
like
feel
Elijah Simmons style.
Yeah,
because Elijah, that big guy's got soul. He's got soul. He's super bad. He can dunk a basketball. There's a lot going on with Elijah Simmons, who's still, kicking around, making it a go at the NFL level. Good to see. Always, when he's as a player, when that guy, Elijah Simmons,
he's cool.
The clips of him when he is like his best reps, he just one man eviscerates the inside of the line of scrimmage.
He's really scary
because he is about as tall as he is wide. He's they list him at 6'2", doubting he's that, or 6'1". There's no way.
He's scary.
But he is a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
And he's a fire hydrant with some appendages, and he will hit you. And when he hits the inside of the line, those guys, when he hits you right, you go back. But speaking of people who hit, Tennessee has, defenders hit.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, right? Yeah. It's not the best transition. Just go with
okay.
it. It's fine.
I'm proud. Yeah, go ahead.
We'll get there eventually. Don't worry. The plane will get on the ground at some point. But Tennessee, if we are to believe what was initially reported, and now we've been able to confirm that at least they're in some serious talks there. Now, in terms of where things are exactly in the process, can't tell you that as we're sitting here. Of course, just wait 5 minutes after we're done recording, something else will happen because that's been what's going
The
on this
theme.
week. We go off air and then, hey, look what just happened right now. So, but Jim Knowles, who spent last season at Penn State, I think currently still is technically Penn State's defensive coordinator, because James Franklin was fired, he was not, and so because obviously they paid a lot to get him there, and you want to see. Does the new coach, whoever it's going to be, it ends up being Matt Campbell, would he maybe want to keep him because he's already really good and the money involved and all that? So I get it. They're throwing out enough cash as it is, paying James Franklin, the gross domestic product of a small country, to not coach there anymore and to take their entire recruiting class. But it's before he was there, he was at Ohio State.
Won a national championship.
Yes, and was a part of the defense that gave Tennessee the business up there in Columbus last season.
I don't even want to think
and a
about
night that was
game.
colder than it is right now. You go outside Knox right now, it's cold and windy. That night in Columbus, colder and windier.
It was a sad day for Tennessee fans.
Rough. It was cold. Well, personally, the thing that offended me was the cold. That was the very worst
cold
part
on
of it.
top of the butt whooping.
Yes, it's like you
crazy.
sit there. If I'm going to sit there and watch this blowout, can I at least not be 10 degrees outside? And you don't always get what you want.
Actually, I didn't go to that game. I was on PTO with my family, debating a week prior if I was maybe
how
wanting
much you love
to
your
go.
family, basically.
Yeah, and I was like, thank goodness I didn't go to that game.
How much? Like, I love you. How
my
much do I
goodness.
love you? I don't know. But yeah, it turns out you didn't miss much. It was, and before that, he worked with David Cutcliffe at a couple places, including Duke, where he has been a coach for teams that run up-tempo offenses, and he's consistently put together some of the best defenses in the country. And at Penn State, a little up and down this season. Other than maybe the UCLA game, I don't know that offense has more traditionally kind of been their bugaboo. But at Ohio State, certainly those numbers were
ridiculous,
really, really, really good. And at Oklahoma State, you know how fast they go offensively. You know how many points they score. They don't huddle, and so when you're leading the country in some defensive categories at Oklahoma State, you get people's attention, right? And this is, I believe, on Monday, because Monday, it's been a long week already, but Monday was the day
Tim Banks got fired.
Where Tim Banks, that was where that came out that had happened. And that day on this show, here in this studio, I said, hey, technically, I don't think he's on the market officially, but, guys like Jim Knowles are out there. I said, I don't know if Tennessee will go that high, but
that's funny. Yeah.
And I said, because I thought like if you really want to make a statement, if you really want to get the attention of your own fans, your own recruits across the country, your guys who are on the team now, players who might be wanting to come from the portal, if you want to get everyone's attention, go hire somebody like that. Now, hiring that guy, well, I just did not think. I said it's great news if Tennessee's even considering people of that caliber, because they know they're going to have to pay and they know they mean business.
Well, it's also interesting because you mentioned Tim Banks. The news came out on Monday, and you're trying to, when this kind of news comes out, you're trying to figure out the time frame of when these two parties had these discussions, because you think about the James Franklin news, they obviously hire Campbell. Is that going to be, was that a factor at all? Like, was James Franklin being their end all be all for Knowles? Like, what,
I think the money, because Penn State had to pay Ohio State a lot of money to get in.
Yeah, for sure. So, you spend one season at Penn State, and then you think about when Tennessee even had these conversations with him. 2 days later, something like, and you look at, what people are predicting, and, think about who could potentially be taking Tim Banks's role. And I don't know if he was high on the list of people who Tennessee fans were expecting to have in the mix, I guess.
He's one of those names that you throw out there at the beginning of any search, and you basically make, as doing this a long time, covered a lot of coaching searches, so got pretty good at, over the years, how you put together a hot board pretty quickly, right? The first step, always have a list in your mind or in a Google Doc or somewhere written down somewhere, because you never know when it might happen, so it always could happen. So you always need to remember, hey, if I remember this guy worked with this guy, or this guy gave this guy trouble in a game, I'm going to write that down because I'm going to remember that because that guy will remember that. And so you just kind of rainy day fund, basically. You put some of these things in here. And so you start, if you cover a place like Tennessee or like a Penn State, Ohio State, then you start toward the very top of the list and you say, okay, let's say they're willing to pay whatever it takes. Let's say they could go get whoever they wanted to if they paid them enough and if it worked out. Who would be your top list, right? Like it's who would be like the dream candidates that if you're like, oh man, and it's almost never that person.
Yeah.
But you put them on the list anyway, and you might file it away under long shot, but why not? Mm-hmm. And then you start making a list of people who might realistically make more sense. And in that list, you usually have places where coaches have intersected before, people they know, people that, or know, maybe if they haven't worked together, they both had the same mentor along the way, somewhere where they're in the same schematic system, because you learn to think the way they think, which is those are the kinds of lists that they all have, whether they're coaches, ADs, they have lists of rank, like, hey, let's, number one, who's just theoretically, who could it be, right? You know?
Yeah.
And then, okay, realistically, financially, if the dream candidates don't want the job or if, the money won't work out because it's not there or whatever, who maybe would make more sense. And then it's who do I know that I can trust? And Knowles for me was it may have been the very first name that I threw out, but I did not think Tennessee would go that route. You just throw that out there because that's one of the first names on your list.
And to be clear, a deal is not finalized.
Oh no, they're still working on it.
1,000%. So, but obviously, like you got people like Pete Thamel reporting.
And I can tell you they're talking. I just don't know.
Totally.
I don't know how you.
Yeah, and
it's
could
like
be
what part of
something that
relationship?
might
Are you
take.
dating? Are you exclusive? Are you just talking? Like what's going on?
And who
there,
knows? It could take a few days to be final. You don't really know. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. Again, the time frame of when this all happened, and I guess Tennessee had to move quickly because, again, we talked about this earlier in the show. This has to be the biggest hire of Josh Heupel's career at Tennessee, at least, and it needed to be a good one. So it needs to be a good one. So I think Tennessee maybe jumped on this really, really fast, and I don't know what the conversations were, but to get a guy like him and be able to be in talks with him at this moment in time within 2 days of firing your DC, it's definitely, and I'm like you said, maybe it was like high on their list and someone was out there really thinking about it. Danny White, so I don't know. We don't know.
That's the other conversation. Is there always, you wonder how many cooks are in the kitchen, and is this something that, and we may never know if this is something that Heupel really wanted to do, or was he told you are going to have a new defensive coordinator, or did he say, I have to go do this? Mm-hmm. And we may never know that because I could see an instance, just a scenario potentially where, Danny White would tell Heupel that he has to make this decision, but he says, no one's ever going to know this. You and I are the only people here talking, but you're making this move. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just telling you, this has got to go in a different direction. Sometimes bosses can do that, and sometimes, so again, that's all conjecture. What I'm throwing out there are scenarios of what could happen. But those conversations almost always start a couple ways.
Yeah.
And it starts with a call to that person's representative. Would Jim be interested financially? What would it take? If the answer to one is yes, he would be, and you always say yes, because you don't know what the answer to number two is unless you say yes to question number one. Like if you say I'm not interested, you'll never know. Always say you're interested. Always. Of course I'm interested. Of course I'm interested. Of course he'd be interested. Of course. You're Tennessee. Why wouldn't he be?
Yeah.
Whether you are or not, because then Tennessee's it's gonna be out there that Tennessee's interested, and your agent will then do what they do, which is start calling and texting the Thamels and Matt Zenitzes and Chris Lowe's, or if it's someone that they may know in some situation, someone like me, they want that stuff out there. Hey, heard this is, by the way, so Tennessee's interested in my guy. Then the report gets out there. Then the public campaign from where they are starts to have pressure, like you have to keep this guy, so you have to get more money. that's how all of this works. That if you want to peek under the hood, that's what's there. It's almost exactly, at least 75% of it is exactly what you think it is. It's people using leverage to get more money and more years on their contracts, right? It's why the coach buyouts are one-way things where it's really expensive to fire them, but if they want to leave, it's not that bad because they have all the leverage. That's how the market is. And so that's how it starts, because if you say yes to question one, then you get to see what you really want to know,
which is question
two. What would it take? How much is my guy going to make here? And if it works out, it works out. And if it works out here, then there's no foolproof hire. And we're never going to present anything to people out there without saying, listen, most of this is good or most of this is bad, but here's the alternative view. Like, let's throw it out there for discussion, and because it's fair and honest and all these things. If Tennessee hires Jim Knowles, my guess here, what I'm thinking as someone who's been around the business for a while, knows a lot of people in this business, you have very, very, very many more reasons to be excited than not, if that's the case. Because look at the CV. Look at it. Look, I can see this. There would be some reasons to give a couple causes for pause. Maybe let's just say the most widely discussed one so far, and it's a fair point, is that he runs typically a very complex system, and it can take time, i.e. more than one season, to really start grasping it. Now, my counter to that would be, it's hard in this day and age to still have any kind of a philosophy like that, because your roster year to year can be very, very different. Now, still you have guys who almost always were on the previous team and they're back, and you get that institutional knowledge, you get a foundation. That helps. But in this day and age, year to year, you got to be ready. Mm-hmm. Look at, for instance, Tim Banks. Last year, 365 days ago, give or take, maybe 350 days ago, he's potentially going to be out of a contract, and Tennessee's fighting tooth and nail to make sure they keep him, because he's saying, hold on, why didn't you offer me an extension earlier? I'm worth more than what you're paying me right now, but it's the respect thing. Like, why did you let my contract almost run out? And by the way, I might go be a head coach somewhere. And then they're like, no, we love you. Come on, we'll make this work. And they make it work. And then 350 days later, hey, we're going to pay up to a couple $1 million a year for you to not coach here anymore. So, yeah, it can turn that quickly. But that's been a concern at times with Knowles is, will you have the patience over a couple of years to do this? Because it might take that much time, but if you do, you're going to be really, really good.
Yeah. And maybe that's what the intention is. But you brought up a good point, too, with the veteran defenders kind of coming back. It's interesting because if he does run such a different, complex defensive scheme, those veteran guys are going to have to relearn things, too. So it brings up some interesting points about how willing are not just this program, but the Tennessee fan base to wait for success, if that's the case, if this is the future of what this program is going to look like.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting there is, again, I'm not pessimistic about this. If this happens, I think this is good for Tennessee. But the argument would be, you're paying a guy who was maybe already the highest paid defensive coordinator in college football, and you're telling me on the front end, I might not immediately be awesome. That's like if this is like an elevator pitch on like The Bachelor, you might not be making it to the next round. You know what I mean? Like, that's a tough elevator pitch if that's what you're saying up front. So yeah, I mean, there is some maybe maybe some concern there if you want to call it that. But
I don't think I don't think anybody should be concerned unless we've got a deal finalized. You know.
That's true,
But,
but
yeah.
but this has reached a level already where I think there would be more surprise if it didn't work out than it did. That's when things reach this level of reporting and this level of discussion. You're basically feeling pretty safe to go out there and leak some of this stuff. So we'll see. You never know. But I think when you talk about style, you could say I see some of the edge type guys that he's had at Ohio State and Penn State and some of these places. I don't know if, like right now, Tennessee has that kind of personnel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I say there, whatever. That doesn't bother me because in this day and age in college football, your base defense, I don't care where you are, your base defense is a nickel. Now, not all nickel defenses are the same, but they have one thing in common, 5 defensive backs. And in front of that, you don't really have a lot of options. You go 4-2-5, you go 3-3-5. Mm-hmm. Now you can go man, zone, all kinds of things you can do, right? The whole menu. But in terms of what your base defense is, because it used to be the big deal, is this from a 3-4 to a 4-3, or because that can be way different. Guys are standing up who weren't. Guys are playing in space that weren't before. I need fewer defensive linemen, but they got to be bigger. You go through all these things, right? And that used to be, and to some extent still is a fair discussion, but it used to be like the discussion. Mm-hmm. Now it's, you're running nickel because almost everybody spreads the field. And unless they're spreading the field like a Vandy does where they're still running it a lot and you're going to play some multiple linebacker stuff anyway, at that point, I don't really care because you're going 4-2-5 or 3-3-5, but you're doing the same thing. You got 5 guys out there, you're playing a nickel most of the time because that's what offenses make you do. So that part, I'm like, I'm not as concerned about that part of it because I think a coach with this much history, this much ability, this much knowledge of the game probably knows more than one way to skin a cat. I'm guessing he can move some pieces around the chessboard and figure out to do what he has with what he has. And to be candid, the amount of money it would take to have you, I better have that. I'm paying for this, right? Like if you go to a nice restaurant, you get all dressed up, you fight traffic, you pay a gajillion dollars for the meal. I better like what I'm eating, or we're going to have a discussion, you know? So I think, I'll be honest, I think in some ways a move for Walters may have excited me just a little bit more in just a couple of ways. But you can't, any search for a defensive coordinator that ends with a guy who's universally regarded as one of the best in the sport.
Yeah.
I'll give you the devil's advocate, but for the most part, there's a better chance this works than doesn't.
I got some breaking.
What do you got?
Just the media release from the Pittsfield Police Department on Sharon Moore. Should I read it aloud?
Might as well, because we got, about 10 minutes before we got to step out of here. So, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, the media release says, the Pittsfield Police Department responded to the above location. There's a location listed above on this screenshot. At the above date and time for the purposes of investigating an alleged assault. Mm-hmm. The department has received multiple media requests for information. A suspect in this case was taken into custody. This incident does not appear to be random in nature, and there appears to be no ongoing threat to the community. Mm-hmm. The suspect was lodged at the... I'm not going to try to butcher this county jail name, but a county jail pending.
What's it? Spell it. Let's try.
Washtenaw, Washtennaw.
Boy, that is
Washtenaw.
That is very Midwestern sounding.
Pending review of charges by the same name, Washtenaw County prosecutor.
Close enough.
At this time, the investigation is ongoing. Given the nature of the allegations, the need to maintain the integrity of the investigation and its current status at this time, we are prohibited from releasing additional details. Further details regarding the incident will be released as soon as permissible. And looks like Matt
Zenitz, yeah, my former colleague, good guy,
former colleague,
good guy,
all right,
good
yeah.
guy, yeah.
I'll give
guy.
him a follow.
You should.
Senior
He does
reporter
break news
for CBS Sports. Cool. Okay, cool. Not cool. Obviously, a really stinky situation,
yes.
But interesting for sure.
It's and that is a tremendous word salad. Like, that is some great legalese. You know, that is.
Yeah, we didn't get much from that.
Although it didn't feature the word ascertain. Almost every police report I've ever read has the word ascertain at least once. Does it say that word anytime in there?
I don't think
you said it. No. Then is it official? Is it an official police document if it doesn't say the word ascertain at least once?
The big stuff is the alleged assault. They
Yes.
did mention that, and that he is in custody at the. I'm not going to try it again.
So
the county jail.
The Cliffs notes. This was not a random thing. This was an isolated thing with one person going at a specific other person. The person's in custody, so there's no threat to the community.
Yes,
that's standard.
They cleared up that.
Yes, and so it's
nonetheless just such a scary situation, and like you said, it just snowballed into something I don't think anybody would have ever expected.
No, I mean, you never know how people are going to react, right? I mean, I try really hard to be as judgment free as I can be, because in what we do for a living, judgment, assumptions don't help usually. Like, they'll hurt you more often than they'll help you, some of those assumptions. But I try really hard not to judge anyone by the worst moments of their life and the worst decisions of their life. Now, sometimes they're really bad things, and you have to say, you have to be punished for that. That's not okay. You can't do that, right?
Yeah.
There are rules in society and ethics and morality, and there are things you can't do and you need to be punished for them. But I try really hard not to judge people by the very worst moments of their life, because people who are not normally just the absolute worst people can have things happen, and they can have a little bit of they can snap a little bit mentally, and bad things can happen. And if any of these allegations are true, obviously you're talking about someone who, has some issues that need to be sorted out with the family first off, because those are, what you do there's a difference between illegal and just immoral or unethical. Like, that it's one of those things sometimes you're like, that's not cool, but not illegal necessarily, but not cool.
Yeah.
But that's between that man and his family and those people. But when you start, when you have threats of harm and self-harm, and okay, like that's different, and it's awful. And you sit here trying to say, well, I wonder what this means for college football in terms of, where's this person going? Where's that person going? Could this do that? What if Kalen DeBoer goes there? Then Bama's open. And what if Lane Kiffin all of a sudden just went to Bama? Because the only person who would do something like that probably is Lane. And so, and you start thinking about, like, the rat race of it, the chase of it all, the stuff that, is intoxicating to people who do what we do for a living, right? But then you go, okay,
let's take a step back.
Let's take a step back, because you read this and what's happening, you go, ooh.
Oh, yeah, and it doesn't help. Obviously social media kind of brings it all to everybody's attention, and then you got everybody in the comments, and, it just kind of is a downward spiral. It just spirals into something that, you kind of forget the human aspect of, this guy's got a family.
Yes.
He's got kids. This is a tough situation, and nobody should be put in harm's way because of a situation like this. But yeah, I'm glad that they detained him and that he is not in anybody else's harm right now, and and not himself, and hopefully that they've got the situation under control.
Yeah, because I try not to be an ethical or moral police. There are actual police and laws and things that do those things. That's not my job, and I don't want it to be my job.
Yeah.
But I where I kind of come down on this is if you're talking about the classic old story of, happily married, says he's a moral man, has an affair with a much younger woman, yada, yada. Like, people are going to joke about that, and I'm not going to sit here and say, like, you don't maybe deserve some of those jokes.
Yeah, we're not going to be like, he's a good dude.
Now, the family
Yeah.
now the family does not, and it's horrible, but I'm not going to sit here and try to tell people I don't do that because people, cavemen probably were joking to other cavemen about situations like this. You know what I mean? Like, that's
I think I saw
the human
something,
condition.
a Michigan beat reporter or something, like a few days when the first news of the affair came out, he tweeted, and again, I don't remember the reporter's name, but it's kind of going viral on, I guess, Twitter right now.
Twitterix.
X.
Twitterix.
I can't even do it.
I just still say Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't work for them. They can't sue me.
Exactly. But he said something along the lines of, this guy's a great dude. He would never do something like this, blah, 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 blah. And then when all of this stuff came out today, he quote tweeted it and said, I was forced to post this.
Yeah.
So it's just like, the people who were working so closely with him too, never expected something like this to happen. And of course, this seems like just an outlandish, random event that, he probably couldn't even predict it, So,
well, I mean, the fact of the matter is these things happen not just with famous people, but probably proportionately higher with people who are famous and wealthy and all these things and powerful and all that. But my point was that I'm fine with jokes on some things, but like when it gets down to like, okay, someone allegedly has a weapon and is threatening people and is threatening to harm himself and others, at that point I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put the jokes in the pocket for now because this got weird and this is troubling.
And you know what the craziest part is, when you work at a local TV station, and obviously we cover sports, but this is something that reporters at our station, at stations across the country, deal with every single day. That side of those stories. So when it is implemented in the sports aspect of things, I think it gets elevated because it is not something that we see too often.
No, because usually people keep their business under wraps more than this.
Yeah, I mean, as they should. But and obviously when this is like public information coming out. But yeah, it's just super a fascinating thing because I work with so many reporters at WBIR who deal with shootings and elevated crazy stuff, and you put it in the sports mix and it gets taken to a whole new level of just drama and speculation and the intrigue and the how far people will go to like figure out what happened, I guess.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about that is there have been times in my career where you do have to cover things that are not sports. Mm-hmm. Because they intersect with sports, or maybe there's a deal where it's happened before where I'm working for the Chattanooga newspaper, but I live in Knoxville. And so if something happens up this way and they want it covered, it's like, well, it's going to take somebody else an hour and a half to get up there. Wes is already there. Wes, can you get there or can you do something? So like I've covered things like natural disasters and crime and criminal things and you always feel like part of you's like, I'm a reporter, I belong, and the rest of it's like, I'm a fish out of water here. Like, do I know these legal terms for sure? Do I understand this? Like, do I need to, do I have the proper attire for this? And so you go into all that, but it's at the end of the day, you're a reporter, so you go out there and you take a notepad or a camera and you go out there and do it. I mean, I've talked to police at 3:00 in the morning about stuff and been like, okay, so what do you ascertain from this alleged thing that's happening that's very serious? Yeah, I mean
they do it here. I think again, local stations around the country, weather coverage hits and it's all hands on deck, wall-to-wall coverage. There's been times where I've been out reporting on snow coverage. I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. I'm trying to write down my notes from Todd Howe and figure out what this all means and try to go on TV. The roads are looking clear as day, and you should be good to drive here. I'm like,
we can pull up the weather cam and traffic cam now if you want to. Remember, we have access to all that.
I mean, we could do it all.
I could hit. I don't know if I want to do it this time of night, but I could pull up any of those buttons. But it's there's there's times where you sit there and you go, okay, like I'm serious about this. I got to go figure this out and do this. But there's also situations where you find some levity in it. Like the first thing that came to my mind when you were thinking about that is working here late at night. Somebody who you're going to get to know here at some point, our good old Andy McClung, he is one of the most versatile, awesome reporters that we have here.
Yep.
And he is a reporter's reporter. Now, you talk to this guy, and you're like, this is a country boy, and I like this. But there's that side of him, and then there's the rugged bulldog reporter version of him.
You should pull him in. I got to go do my shows. Pull him in.
Yeah, well, I'll say this, and then we'll get out of here. Is that he sits in there at night because he's usually on the night side.
Justin knows.
And anytime anything
When he wears
happens,
his Andrew, and he's hitting them all.
it's almost like if you've seen a sprinter like at the Olympics or like they are in the block and they are gone as soon as that starter's pistol goes off. He is anytime like the scanner goes off, anytime a beep happens anywhere.
He's on it.
It's like
he's out here catching criminals.
It's like the meerkat standing up. You can just see him standing up like
Yeah.
in the office, and he's like, "I'm gone."
This is what Andrew
What's
McClung
going on? Where's my
lives
camera?
for.
Let's go.
There's a lot of things Andrew McClung lives for, and one of them is the GP Highlanders too.
He was all over that story.
Great run to the state title. Covered him.
Ran into Graham Simpson in Westview,
Yep.
and that was a tough
But
matchup there.
you know what? Andrew McClung was there for the entirety of their regular season, and when he's passionate about something, you'll notice.
And then he'll go cover.
We gotta get
and then
him in
And then
here.
he'll cover something totally unconnected and random and has nothing to do with the next day, and is just all about it. It's a meerkat standing up, and then a sprinter going out of the blocks and going. I mean, the other night there was something that was happening kind of around here, like not close to where we are, and he was like almost immediately before even knowing what was going on, like where's the camera? I'm going. You're like, whoa, hold on now, wait, like what's going on? Or
Let's figure this out.
Is this where you should be going? Like, is it safe there? He's like, I don't care, I'm going. I got news. There's news. I'm going.
And you'll
get to know him.
I'm curious what voice he'll use.
Well,
on
yeah,
the podcast.
bringing him in here, I can guarantee you this.
It'll be his Southern boy charm, and then
Yes.
maybe we'll get his anchor voice eventually.
He'll come in here with the anchor voice, and we'll
ease it out of him.
We will wrestle it out of him by just talking for a long period of time and get the guard down, get the accent up. Guys, we got a lot more to discuss here.
Gotta
Normally,
go do TV.
Emily's got to get out of here. Let's see. Normally I'd say we're going to see you in about 23 hours, but it's going to be significantly less than that this time. Let's do math. What is 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow from right now?
I've never been very good at math, Wes.
Well, that makes two of us. Now we're sitting here looking like idiots at 10:48 p.m. Eastern.
Hopefully too many people aren't looking at us.
Okay, hold on. We can do this. 12 hours from now would be 11 p.m. or 11 a.m.
So
16.
no,
You said 12 plus 4, didn't you?
12 plus 4.
So this is how my 4-year-old son, now 4-year-old today, this is how he
16.
counts.
Count your fingers.
That's 16 hours.
16. There
I'll
you go.
say it in the Andy and the Cloneways. We'll see y'all in about 16 hours. We'll be back tomorrow, guys. I know there's a lot going on. There'll be more with Jim Knowles, I'm sure. Who knows what's going to be going on with the coaching carousel with all this stuff going on. It is wild out there tonight. But thank you for staying up with us here for 10 at 3 After Dark, and we will see you in about 16 hours.